This is another question from my Xiaohongshu followers. Ni hao to you. What exactly is the essence of learning? Some people online say that learning is essentially imitation. Do you think this view is accurate? No, is the answer, simple answer. But I can see why people, particularly in China, should suggest this. The attitude towards learning in different societies and civilizations is very different. In the West, in my education, and if you look at the education of medieval through early modern to modern Europe as a whole, the attitude to learning is that the idea is that you should understand things. It's not about knowledge, it's not about facts, it's not about accumulating a whole set of ready answers. It's about the tools, it's about how to think and how to approach problems. So if you look even 800 years ago at the founding of my University of Cambridge, the subjects you learned didn't provide lots of facts. You had rhetoric, which was about how to convince people and speak and form arguments. You had logic, which was how to think. You had mathematics, which was about how to solve complex problems. You had philosophy. You had classics. You had a whole range of not particularly practical, but thinking tools. You might also study more factual things like law or medicine, but even they were taught in terms of their principles. So the idea of education up to the present in Britain, for example, in good schools, is that you don't cram people's minds with facts. You see behind me my books. But the idea that I would take those books and put them into my mind is not anything to do with education. I would read them, absorb them, learn something from them about how to approach the world and problems, but I wouldn't memorize them or just repeat them. That was nothing to do with education and learning. So the West was based on this learning attitude, understanding things and their basic principles, so you can apply this to many problems throughout your life. Having looked at the education systems of most of the rest of the world, there is a different approach. These are civilizations, should we say, many Islamic societies, many Buddhist societies, China, and so on. They treat education as a building in the human brain, a concentration on the human brain, of information that is contained in the works of the great masters in the past, the Buddha and his disciples, the Prophet and his followers, Confucius and Mencius and Lao Tse and so on. They found the truths, the great truths of how to live a good life and to deal with other people. That was established 1, 2, 3,000 years ago, and the task of education is to pass on that great breakthrough through to the present. And so Confucian education in China, for example, or what I've seen in the repetitions in a Buddhist monastery, for example, are taking great writings, sutras or holy books, and memorizing them. And so I've been struck when I've been to Chinese schools, for example, by the huge piles of books which little Chinese children have to memorize. And that memorization is then tested in the examination systems, and those who are successful go up socially. And so if you pass the Gaokao well and get to good university and onwards nowadays, you have supposedly a good job. That, to me, is not education and learning. Certainly the Chinese students I've taught and who come to Britain are very well educated. They know a great deal, and they're extremely hard-working, sharp, and their brains are very well stocked with information. Sometimes people say they're not as creative because this stress on filling the brain with books is not necessarily the best way to approach new and complex problems. My view is that probably we have a good deal to learn from Chinese educational methods, and China has a good deal to learn from ours. It's a mixture of these two. So always make a big distinction between knowing. I know that China has so many people. I know that China speaks this language. I know that China has this kind of economy. And understanding, which is a deeper thing. I understand things at a deeper level about China. So try and both know more, but remember that facts and other things now can be held as they have done in the past in books and now obviously in computers. You don't need to store all this stuff in your mind. You need the approach. It's rather like a famous story in Sherlock Holmes where Watson, his assistant, asked him how far away the moon was, and he said, "I have no idea, Watson. I don't fill my mind with information that I can quickly look up in a book. My mind is tuned to solving problems." So both learn and know is the solution. 谢谢。